Hey guys, Mustache Tom here to review the movie Beetlejuice. So, I've seen the trailer for this quite a few times, and of course, this is one of those sequels that have came out long after the original. And yeah, with that being said, let's jump right into it and do it as objectively as possible. So now we are following mother Lydia some years later from the previous movie. Obviously, the inclination of the original movie was that Lydia was a young person, probably about to reach her, maturity. We have this undead guy who can do quite a lot, falls in love with her, and yeah, then helps freak out the people that are trying to buy this house, while all the love stuff is sort of like a backdrop to that. So, in this sequel, we have him still having those feelings, except, obviously Lydia is now older, now an adult on top of that, a meaningful, and whatever, from the first movie. And now she has a daughter named Astrid. And also, she now has a boyfriend who works simultaneously as her producer, as she works as this sort of paranormal detective, as it were. But I digress. So, as we see these two fall in love, we get these flashbacks that are always done in these different ways. The first one that we see is done through claymation, and this talks about how the father of Astrid was killed by something or other in a shark incident. Meanwhile, we see that later on that they, are trying to, or he's trying to, the husband-to-be is trying to propose at a weird time, that being at the funeral of the husband. All the while, we cut to Beetlejuice at a certain point here to catch up what he's up to now. As well as we meet our new antagonist of the movie, his ex-girlfriend named Dolores. She has the power to suck up others' essence, I guess, and leave them for nothing. They're gone, as the movie promptly puts it at a certain aspect in the movie. All the while, we then see that throughout these sequences later, that Lydia is seeing Beetlejuice amongst her life in various locations, whether that be alone or among a furry crowd. I think that's what that was, anyway. And we cut to then Beetlejuice, who's quite freaked out that the ex is looking for him. All the while, we see that, again, during the funeral is when this proposal of the wedding happens between Lydia and the producer guy, husband-to-be, rather. All the while, Lydia is still running about collecting more souls. And Juice wants, Beetlejuice, as I called him, I just called him Juice in my notes for short, runs from his ex, or blockades himself, rather. And he goes on about his backstory, about how he fell in love with this individual. Again, when it's a flashback, it's done in a different style. This time it's done in black and white. So, the proposal was held off. She finally says yes. This upsets Astrid, which gets her to leave, and sort of bike her way through the city to the other side to end up almost hitting this treehouse, where she meets a young man that she eventually falls for pretty quickly, named Jeremy. So, all that's gone down. Dolores is still on the move. And Astrid, curates about what happened to the original owners of the house at a certain point, and Lydia talks about how they found a loophole to circumvent their circumstance. But more signs are being sent their way via this flyer that's sent from Beetlejuice's lair, that being the attic of that house. And this is where Astrid first says the name the first time. And she even gets to a second time before being cut off. Then she heads back to Jeremy, where he invites her to this Halloween party. All the while, Lydia tries to inform her husband-to-be about the Beetlejuice situation. She's seen him enough and wants to have him know the situation. And he goes on about the psychiatrist thing and then says the name 3 times to, deal with your trauma. And then they both end up shrugging down, where they both meet Beetlejuice once more. She remembers how to get home, which I don't remember this rule from the first movie. She calls out home 3 times, and I guess that allows her to come home. Again, I don't remember that happening in the first movie. It's been a while, so I don't know. I just know saying the name 3 times is what gets him to appear and then disappear. Those are the only 2 rules that I was aware of in the previous movie, from what I can remember of it. It has been a long time. So, surprise, surprise, it doesn't take long for Astrid and Jeremy to hook up, give them that kiss. But oh no, it turns out that Jeremy is a ghost. So he claims that he can help her see her dad again, so she decides to follow suit. All the while, it's learned through exposition on the opposing side, that being through Lydia, that this was a murder house, and that Jeremy was actually a murderer that murdered his own parents after something or other happened. So she's trying to get to back there before anything happens. However, she's too late. They get through this barrier and they get to the other world before she can arrive. So she goes to the attic, says the name Beetlejuice 3 times to get him first to appear, in which she makes a contract in order to help Astrid, essentially. So now they're in the undead space. Astrid has officially been tricked by Jeremy into this swap proposal that she reads this passage for. So yeah, all the while, the small heads from Beetlejuice's work office, like, escape for whatever reason. No, wait, I think they escape. Well, I don't know why they explicitly escaped to the real world. Like, I know that they were hiding from um, Dolores, but I'm not sure why they went to the real world to do that. Maybe that area that they would have been trapped. I'm not necessarily sure, but whatever. Anyway, so Astrid eventually gets arrested in the underworld because she's not supposed to be there. Her dad, who's passed away, sees her. He's there. Just so happens to be there, convenient later on, and then gets to them later on. We get this moment where the cop interviews Bob. This cop character, played by Willem Dafoe. Admittedly, that aspect of the movie could, in terms of script writing, could probably have been completely cut, if we're being real. I mean, the interview with Bob doesn't get us anywhere. Bob can't talk. He's one of the small heads that can't talk. At any rate, and even so, Dolores takes out Bob by sucking up his soul, so I guess he's just dead now. Or gone, rather than dead, I should say. So, Beetlejuice sees that Jeremy is trying to escape and then opens up a pit to, I'm guessing, hell, because it's an inferno under the slot that opens up beneath him, so he falls in there. And the family escape back to the real world. Meanwhile, once everyone's there, Beetlejuice wants his wedding, so he gets, the wedding area all set. He then proceeds to give the husband-to-be a truth serum, and then he goes on about why he really wanted to marry her was for the money, from her job. He then removes all the Watchers on, and then they go on a pretty long sequence here where they do this song bit where they lip sync the words to a known song and sort of dance along or whatever. And the cops arrive, the undead ones, and they immediately get frozen by Beetlejuice, so again, utterly pointless. However, Dolores also arrives. Astrid uses the book to summon the worm from one of the other worlds. It manages to take Dolores and the ex-husband, I think, both out, if I remember that. So Lydia says Beetlejuice's name. Astrid says that this whole contract thing was null and void because of the legal stuff or whatever. I don't know. Loophole nonsense. They're whatever. They say Lydia says the name 3 times. She's freed. So Lydia and Astrid hug it out. We cut back to the Soul Train, which is an area we visit one other time, where this is where Astrid was going to be taken originally when she was getting arrested the first time, to see that Delia, not the other one, is accepting that she's dead here in this world, done in by some snakes. And thus, we do some time shenanigan shippingery where Ash should marry some other guy, I guess, and then they have a wedding, they have a baby, and I guess this whole thing is like a nightmare sequence because they give birth to Juice Baby, or Beetlejuice Baby, I don't know. But that, like, and it's like a nightmare, and then Lydia sees Beetlejuice, and then that's a nightmare, and then the movie just sort of ends, and that's Beetlejuice. So, obviously, a little bit more convoluted than the first movie. Like I said, the whole aspect of the cop stuff and the underworld stuff, it felt like, and it's weird because they mentioned Disney in this movie. I feel like they kind of took it from Coco, right? The whole, like, oh, the passport to, like, the other world, or, like, the getting into trouble in the underworld. I don't know. Because I know in the first movie, it was all about they were given disguises, the family members, to look like they belonged in the underworld, so it's not like Disney stole it from Beetlejuice, the original. It seems like the sequel has taken a little bit of inspiration from Disney, which, I don't know. I'm just, like, throwing out, like, where I think that might have come from. Anyway, I think the whole thing with the cops is a little bit, again, convoluted and unnecessary. But I guess simultaneously they were trying to figure out a way to make Astrid's journey a little bit more like, oh, she's going to be in trouble when she gets there, or like pit her against something that would make her journey a little bit more challenging outside of just dealing with Jeremy by herself in any sort of way. Which she does do, but I mean, like, the cops being involved, again, what additive quality do they add to the scenario, outside of making a minor nuisance and arresting her in the first place, and bringing her a little closer to the Soul Train? Other than that, I don't really get why they're there. Like I said, I think you could remove them and then tighten up the script around the remaining characters. The whole thing with the X, it seems like okay, like, of course none of this has any context in the original. We had no idea that Beetlejuice had a prior relationship in that way. But yeah, I don't know. Like, there's still plenty of kooky zaniness, but it is still pretty clunky in a lot of ways. So I probably would give this movie, if I'm being fair, like a 5 or a 6. Like, it's okay. It's a middling movie, more so. And that's my review of Beetlejuice. And if you ended up enjoying it, then do all the things.